In each problem below, identify the dependent and the independent variable. So when we look at these problems, we want to be thinking which of these variables depends on the other. Because if we can figure that out, then we're going to be able to say that the one that depends on the other would be the dependent variable, and then the other must be the independent. So our first problem says let S be the salary a 25-year-old would earn who has years of education. So the two variables that we're dealing with here are the variable S, which is the salary, and the variable E for years of education. And marking your problem like this can be really helpful to just be able to understand what's going on. So what we want to ask ourselves is, would your salary depend on your years of education, or would your years of education depend on your salary? Well, we know kind of how this works in the real world, that you go, you get some education, and then your salary is going to increase the more education you have. So what's true is that the salary depends on how much education you have, how many years of education. So since the salary, and we can actually write this out, salary depends on education. If you can put the information into a little summary sentence like that, now you're going to be able to easily see if the salary depends on the education. That means the dependent variable is going to be S, and that would leave E to be the independent variable. Let's see if we can apply those same ideas to the second example. Let H be the number of hours a couple spends out on a dinner and a movie date, and D be the number of dollars they need to pay the babysitter when they return home. So let's mark up our problem just so we're sure we understand what's being given to us. So H is the number of hours that we're out on a date, and D is the number of dollars that we have to pay the babysitter. So does we want to just kind of ask ourselves, does the number of hours that we're out depend on how much we pay the babysitter, or does how much we pay the babysitter depend on how many hours we're out? And we kind of know how this works. We're going to be out on a date when we come home, see how many hours we were out, and that's going to determine the pay that the babysitter will receive. So the number of dollars that the babysitter is going to receive depends on how long you were gone, right? Depends on the number of hours. So if we can state it this way, then we're easily on track to be able to answer the question. If the dollars depend on the number of hours, that means the dollars are dependent. So the variable that represented the dollars was D, and the independent variable is going to be the H. Now, it's certainly true that there's a relationship between the number of dollars and the number of hours, or in our first example up here, there's a relationship between the salary and the education. But what's true with these problems, if you ask it both ways, salary depends on education, education depends on salary, there's really only one way that's going to make sense for these kinds of problems. So that's what you want to be able to get it into a little summary statement like this, then you can identify the dependent and the independent variables.